Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Micron. It is time for another update, and on this chart we've had some very interesting developments since the previous video, as we managed to follow through our expectations quite nicely, as we did identify an initial 5-wave move to the upside within this area, and we were looking with high probabilities for an extension to higher prices within at least another 5-wave move to the upside once we had a 3-wave correction complete into our area of support that has actually been touched perfectly. And sure, this structure only really fulfilled the minimum expectations, but it did fulfill them and it did follow through. Now, before we get into this entire story, because there is a lot to be watching out for right now, this is certainly a high-risk area, I would like to go through the larger time frame to provide the full context for anyone who might be new. And while we go there, I want to briefly mention that if you want to be on top with these updates, with these opportunities, I highly recommend that you subscribe to this channel, because we actually provide several video updates every single day for various stocks, and Micron is actually one of the stocks that we cover more frequently. Now, on this chart, we have been tracking one main scenario, which is in blue for the larger time frame and contains this idea of a 1-2 setup, and then within a wave 3 to the upside we are tracking two scenarios that I consider to be the most likely to be the outcome of this development of this chart. So in white we would be looking at a larger wave 1 to the upside, where we would still be looking for a larger wave 3 to occur, but this would be the wave 1 of a larger wave 3. I probably prefer the yellow interpretation given the strength of this latest development, as within the white scenario we were looking already for a possible top to be in place, but given the current strength of this chart and the trajectory of the company, I would highly consider this idea of a larger wave 3 to be forming in a much more direct way, where currently we would only be towards the end of the midpoint of this entire movement to the upside. Basically, we would be looking here at a series of 1-2 setups to have formed throughout years, where only now would we consider a wave 3 to be taking place, in which we would still be looking for extensions to higher prices, and then we would be looking for a series of 4-5 structures to continue this trend until we have a match for every single 1-2 setup, which we didn't draw on the chart, just not to clutter it up too much. Now, the positive part is, the opportunistic part is, that within both white and yellow scenarios, we are looking with high probabilities to build a 5-wave pattern in this area. So it doesn't really matter which scenario will be more likely to be the outcome, as long as we hold the internal levels of support within this structure, we can still track continuation to high prices. So the highly positive aspect of this structure is that we have confluence in this movement to the upside, in both the idea of a wave C in white and the idea of a wave 3 in yellow. I am looking to develop an impulse, and I am tracking the exact same structure in both interpretations, which allows me to look with high probabilities for a wave 4 correction and a wave 5 to take us still to higher prices. And previously, we have been looking for this wave 3 to possibly have a top, but we did highlight very clearly that it is capable of extensions, and unless we managed to reach more clearly the area of support for such an expectation, which really started at $321.5, we would likely need to assume that this is instead an extension of the wave 3, and we also highlighted that within this movement to the upside we expect at least one more high. Well, that at least one more high comes into play only once we reach the area of support for the wave 4 correction, and currently this has not happened. Currently I'm looking for this to still be part of the internal wave 3 to the upside, where once again, I would still be looking for a wave 4 to come afterwards and extend to higher prices within a wave 5 that would see a quite substantial extension still. Now that we have formed an extension to new all-time highs within this wave 3, I would actually need to adjust this area of support in blue, although as we extend still to higher prices within this wave 3, this would need to be further adjusted in the future, so I would be watching currently the $330 level to be the minimum, the minimum target for a wave 4, where typically the ideal target for a wave 4 sits at a 38.2% retracement, which in this case is at $265. Now, I don't necessarily believe we have topped. There is no such evidence at the moment, so this area of support will likely need to be extended, but we are focusing currently on this orange interpretation, for which we did have a preference. We did highlight that this supposed internal wave 5 of the larger wave 3 to the upside did seem quite incomplete, and that we would have liked to see another high formation. Now, keep in mind that this 5-wave pattern is being tracked as an ending diagonal, which means we are only looking for an ABC structure before we can assume a count to be full, before our pattern would be technically complete. And of course, even then, further extensions would be possible, but they wouldn't be necessary. Previously, we did actually lack that last wave to the upside, and sometimes it does happen that we do not get it. However, if we did not get it, I would have needed to track a different scenario than what we had here in orange on this chart to actually assume a wave 3 top to be in place in this blue interpretation instead. Now, within this area, we actually provided very many highly relevant levels of resistance and levels of support. So technically, for the idea of an ABC structure, we could still be looking for this to be an overshoot within a wave B. I would probably not prefer this interpretation, even if we fall back to lower prices still from this area of resistance we have up to $500. I wouldn't focus on this scenario anymore. And within this extension, we have also been tracking a highly relevant area of resistance from a couple of videos ago. So we only had a 3-wave pattern complete in this push to the upside, but we did identify that this structure was able to have an area of support for a wave 4, as we did reach the ideal target for a wave 3, and we highlighted that with building here a wave 5 to the upside, we would be granted a high probability area of support in a follow-up wave B correction. Now remember, we are tracking an ABC structure within this area, and at the same time, we highlighted that with a sustained break above the 78.6% retracement, we get also a shift in the probabilities of a successful breakout to occur in this orange interpretation, that this overall white structure wouldn't be able, or would be a lot less likely to extend to lower prices, at least in this movement to the downside in a more direct wave C. So this interpretation no longer useful, but we did get here the break above the last level of resistance, which was another hint that this would be a successful breakout. We actually had quite a few hints, quite a few signals on this chart that we did highlight throughout our previous videos. Now, this structure is no longer necessary, and in the previous video we did highlight that we had the initial 5-wave pattern to the upside, we did highlight the area of support which had been reached, and we even identified within a smaller time frame a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside, although it was within an extremely small time frame, which was going to hurt the probabilities. It wasn't going to provide the highest possible degree of confidence that we will see a breakout, but it was compelling, and we were looking for a push to higher prices, at least within this area of resistance in white. We provided another area of resistance where we knew that if we push beyond the 78.6% retracement, we are already looking with improved probabilities for a breakout. And not only that, we even had a quite substantial breakout, and we even had a retest from above of this level of resistance, which is just perfect, and it has been able to extend directly to high prices. And now that we have the full context, we have the full picture of what is happening, and I believe this is more important than ever, as we are looking to be towards the end of a quite substantial uptrend, at least within this wave 3 to the upside, and to understand the full context means to understand the full risk. Because currently we are looking here at a wave C, we are looking at a wave C of a wave 5 of a larger wave 5 to the upside. This is not going to be a low risk area to be holding a long position. If you remember, in the previous video we did provide here the ideal target for a wave C, which is typically the 100% extension of the wave A. This has now been achieved. At this point, we are still consolidating at decently high levels, but we have the earnings report coming tomorrow, and we have actually a potentially full pattern within this wave C. So I will still be looking for extensions within this structure. We will provide the full context here, but I want to highlight clearly that this structure is capable of being tracked as a full pattern very easily, in fact, and I would consider it within the idea of a full count to be here 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, this scenario is perfectly acceptable. I can probably track here an A, B, C structure where the wave B could have worked out as a triangle, and in the end, I wouldn't overthink it. I will even highlight within, let's say, a white interpretation, this structure, this count that would allow a top to be in place. Even the proportions look good. If we look at the RSI, which is actually a very relevant tool, especially within such timeframes, within such structures, we can notice that we are starting to see some divergences. So from this perspective, yes, we are perfectly able to have a top. And if we add on top of that, the fact that towards the end of a trend, yeah, towards the very, very late stages, we might not get that additional leg to the upside. We might not get even that one push that would be required to have a more clearly full count. So in that context, yes, this is a very high risk area. And with all that said, I want to highlight that yes, I am actually still looking for continuation to high prices, and there is still plenty of room if we want to look for extensions, but be mindful that it has major risk associated, and the levels of support I would be tracking for such an area would be more useful as an indication of where having a stop loss might not be a bad idea, rather than to look for positions within those structures. So, in the idea of an extension to high prices, we actually have a couple of options. So I could be looking at this to have been a wave 1 up, a wave 2 down here, and then this would be a wave 3 to the upside. We would expect a wave 4 and a wave 5 to take us still to higher prices. And this would actually require me to get into the slightly smaller time frame. Yeah, it is actually quite a nano time frame already, to explain better our expectations. In all of these scenarios, I am actually favoring an ending diagonal, and I have to say, technically it could work out to track the idea of an impulse within this structure, but I wouldn't really trust it too much, yeah? And I would probably focus on the idea of an ending diagonal still. So, within this interpretation, I'm looking to build an A, B, C structure in this wave 3 to the upside. I could find a way to already track a top to be in place to have a wave C complete in this latest development in something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. Yeah, I don't need any further extensions for such an interpretation. And I will actually even label this because it's such a crucial area. I really don't want you to be caught off guard within this expectation. And I want it to be clear. I want you to be prepared. So we have here a wave C that could have a top in place. All right. So in that case, for continuation to high prices, the deepest level of support I would personally be tracking would be here, the 61.8% retracement down to $436.4. I personally wouldn't even go beyond that within a smaller time frame to track extensions, but if you really desire to, this wave C could also see extensions itself, okay? And for that idea, we have even here a couple of options where the wave C could actually extend even more than we would typically expect. So we are either looking basically at a 1, 2, and a wave A within a larger wave 3 to the upside. Within this idea, I would be still tracking an ending diagonal internally here, and in fact, I would only be tracking an ending diagonal within this wave C regardless. In this idea, we would be looking for this to be an A, B, C structure to complete a wave 3. We would then be looking still for a wave 4 and a wave 5 to build only the internal wave C that would form a top within the larger wave 3 to the upside. Yeah, then we would be looking still for even further continuation to higher prices, but this is maybe a bit of a stretch. It's probably one of the more bullish interpretations we could be tracking in this pattern to the upside. And then the other scenario, as I was saying, we could be looking for this to be a 1, 2, 3, and then we would get a tiny wave 4 here and a wave 5 to complete this structure. In either case, the areas of support I would be tracking would be quite similar, and with a break below $454.9 basically, we would have to likely assume that the larger wave 3 has already formed a top and that the larger wave 4 in yellow would be coming. Now, if you choose to track this continuation to higher prices, again, completely your choice, I wouldn't personally recommend it. It is a very high risk area in my opinion, and once again, a better opportunity is expected on this chart. Yeah, we are still looking for the larger wave 4 correction, which will actually provide quite a nice trade setup, and if we manage to identify even there a similar structure with what we created in this wave A to the upside, we will forget about any potentially missed opportunities in this movement. But yeah, this is basically the situation as I see it on this chart. For me, a break below $436.4 would be already a pretty good hint that a more substantial top would be in place within this wave 5 in orange. And once again, I will repeat myself, extensions are not necessary. This pattern can have a full count. In fact, we have tracked this full count within this white structure that allows this wave C to the upside in orange to be complete. So for a recap, within the smaller time frame, we do have this green interpretation that would allow direct extensions. Not a very relevant time frame for me. If we look on the RSI within this 15-minute time frame, we can actually see quite substantial divergences actually. And then if we want some of a more relevant indication that the top is in place, we are looking at the 61.8% retracement in yellow. And beyond that, other types of extensions are possible, but I wouldn't consider them likely. And with that break, I would be looking already for the larger blue correction in this wave 4, with the support zone starting at $330. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoy our content and want to support us directly, check out our channel membership. And as a thank you for any of these actions, I would like to invite you to sign up to our channel newsletter, where you get access to our monthly top picks, where we identify for you high quality structures. And other than that, let me know what else you would like me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.